start with a prayer by EMS Director Nathan Sweet and the Pledge of Allegiance by Chairman Anderson.
Let's pray. God, I just want to give you thanks. All that we have, all that you've given us, are blessings beyond what we deserve, God. And I want you to know that we're thankful. We're thankful for you, for your Son, God, for the love that you have for us. God, I pray that you would continue to impress upon us, our minds, our hearts, our thoughts, our actions, our words, all that we are and all that we give, God, that you would impress upon us the love that you have for us and the love that you've commanded for us to give out. And that it would not be love that would give only by words, but God, but also by actions. It would not be only love that we give to those who love us back, but love to everyone that is a creation that you've created under the sun and the moon. God, we just ask that you impress that upon our hearts. Help us to serve this community. Help us to serve its citizens. And we ask this all in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next is the approval of the agenda.
Second.
Motion second, any discussion?
Do we need to add this resolution here?
No, yeah, it's under law director.
It's in the law director.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimous. Next is appearance of citizens. Do we have anyone here to come before this committee for anything that's not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on to discussion of possible strategic planning workshop for commissioners requested by Commissioner Palmer. Commissioner Palmer?
All right, so, thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's been mentioned by others in Anderson County leadership, and even a strategic planning workshop has been conducted by other county legislative bodies in Tennessee. And so I'm just bringing this up tonight to see if there is interest in Anderson County, this legislative body, having a strategic planning workshop and, you know, offering to help organize it or whatever. So this workshop would be a planning process to review where we are now, where we want to go, and the best way to get there. And it would be an Anderson County plan that's tailored to our specific needs and our constraints. And the goal would be to work together as a legislative body on agreed common goals to do what would strengthen and benefit Anderson County. So I can make a motion to start the discussion, or we can discuss it. I'm not sure how do we do that.
Well, we can go ahead and we'll have a motion and a second for discussion.
Okay, well, I'd like to look at possibly having this sooner than later. So I'd like to make a motion that we have a strategic planning workshop in October. And more details will come next month. But if we could just look at the month of October and then just talk about what this this workshop would look like.
All right, do I have a second for discussion?
Second.
Okay. All right, and you were talking about, like on this workshop, it'd be about a growth plan,
Yes.
which you know that we definitely
Yeah.
need. And you mentioned maybe having a facilitator from CTAS there to kind of guide us, and
Right.
somebody that's got
So-
knowledge and experience in doing so.
Yeah, someone maybe outside could come and help us, you know, stay on, not get off in the broccoli patch somewhere, but stay on looking at our maybe ongoing projects, the county's revenues and debts, and where projects, capital outlay projects that we may want to consider. And then if it's something that works well, we might want to also consider doing this annually, and where we can evaluate progress and make modifications. We would set short and long-term goals, and you know, maybe prioritize those goals, and then, you know, discuss a plan to implement some of those. We may already have some of this already done, but this would be a good way for all of us to come to the table and just have it set before us. I think some of the benefits of this would be, it would help us to allocate our resources more efficiently. You know, there's good ideas that come before commission all of the time, but we don't have the resources to do everything. So if we have a plan before us, it might help us to focus on the things that we've committed to and maybe prioritize new projects or whatever as they come to us. I think it would help us navigate through some of the problems that we have, or maybe deficiencies, or you know, whenever, like a growing population, those types of issues that we have, maybe we can talk through some of those works and come up with a plan to tackle some of those for the county. It'll help us make decisions. You know, some of these decisions that we're asked to make are quite complex, so it'd help us with that. I think it would help new commissioners to acclimate maybe to what's going on in county government, and maybe even refocus some of the seasoned commissioners. When there's bombarded with so much, sometimes we kind of lose focus of what our plan is, our vision is. So I think there's some good things that could come out of this. There are other counties around us that have done this and have been successful. And one of the things that brought it back, or caused me to really start thinking about this, is last month at the commission meeting, Dr. Parrott with the school board talked about Claxton Elementary School and how it had been on their, had come out of their retreat. One of their priorities, it had to be moved back because they had some other things come up, and so now it's time to build Claxton Elementary School. So I think just having a plan and being able to look back and to look where we are and to look forward, it may be beneficial for us as a whole.
Okay. Commissioner Allen?
Yeah, I like the idea, Commissioner Palmer. I'd like to have an end product too. After we have this strategic meeting, will there be a notebook that we could make sure that we have, that will have the plan in it, that we can continuously review and continuously update? So let's make sure that we do have an end product.
Sure.
That would be a plan that we can lay hands on and refer to constantly.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I think that a trained facilitator may be able to help us with all of those sort of things. And of course, this is just to get it going. We'll have 3 months to work together to, you know, to get all of these details worked out, if it's something that the commission thinks would be valuable and would help us.
You know, county commission goes every year to the Hill and to other places, you know, to kind of do the same thing, but we don't focus as much, you know, on Anderson County. When you go there, you know, you ask questions about Anderson County, get knowledge from whatever other people are doing. But I agree with that, and I think the mayor, at one time, in the early part of the commission, I was on this, it was a 5-county regional thing, and they met once a year, and it was like for 4 hours or 6 hours or 8 hours or something like that, and it really seemed to help, gave a direction. So what are you talking about, a retreat inside the county where you just meet for a day?
I think so, something that's, you know, not real elaborate, but it's someplace where we're not distracted and can get some work done. Kind of bring, like for me, bring District 2 ideas or projects we could all bring, and then just also focusing on, you know, what we've got going on right now and how we can get some of those things accomplished. Just a workshop, a time to roll up our sleeves and see if we can't get some things knocked out, or at least on the way.
Yeah. Anybody else? Commissioners out in the, we got 3 commissioners out there. You got any input or ideas or? Okay. So when you wanna work on a date?
Yeah, I think maybe what we could do is send out an email and see if everyone can look at October. A lot of, or what I've heard from other counties, they usually do this in January or February to kind of kick off the budget year, or the budget cycle, you know, looking at the budget. But I think we probably, being our first one, we ought to start a little earlier. October would give us 3 months to plan, but would be before the holiday season. We may have a little mini get-together or whatever January, February, if needed, if that's what everyone wants to do. But I'm thinking we could look at our calendars for October, see if there's a date that would work for most everyone. Go ahead and get it on our calendar so we can protect that date. And then we'll start making contacts. The mayor, we can work with the mayor and the finance director, you know, whatever, and see if we can find a facilitator. And just come back with more details next month as to what it may look like.
Okay, so what you're asking for is just approval of actually putting together and doing a meeting, then we'll work all the details out later.
Well, in the next week.
Yeah.
So come back in, next month.
Next month.
So come back in July, the July operations meeting with more details, a date, if we have, what this facilitator, if we can get that, you know, what we would tackle, kind of, we'll have to pull all these projects, what projects we've got going. Kind of like that, I'm envisioning, I don't know if this is possible or not, but kind of like that ARP, all those projects
Yeah.
that we have, just kind of compile. We may even use resources from the state or whatever, but,
Okay.
something
Jay?
like that.
Is there any issues about notification? When you do something like this, is it open to the public or?
Yeah.
It's an open meeting, you're gonna deliberate issues, you
Yeah.
gotta give public notice, but I love the idea. Like to give public notice.
Yeah, we
Just
can
like you
do
go to
that.
meeting.
Okay.
We may even, you know, someone may suggest a survey, you know, the citizens or something, I don't know, just, you know, what may come out of it.
Great.
Just want to open it up.
I think, I've got the last copy of the last long range planning that was done, that's from years ago.
Really? Okay.
I said it's 20 years. And then, I've got the old operational audit, got that, this is some stuff for you to look at,
Okay.
I've got that stuff, I'll put together.
This wasn't my idea. I'd love to claim this idea, but it's been done. I'm kind of stealing ideas from others, but I can't do this on my own either, so, you know, and I'm not suggesting that. So anyone that wants to help, you know, I think that we all need to work together to see
I'm glad,
what we would like to see in the meeting or in the
Okay.
workshop.
All right.
Now, you can't do like one other jurisdiction, riverboat cruise, leave at 6, nobody else can get on.
Yeah. Okay.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimous. Mayor's report.
Good evening, Commissioners.
Hello.
I thought I would just throw the first item on the agenda here, the opioid settlement funds, out as an idea, just to get a conversation started. So, I put in your agenda packet what I had presented back in March to the Budget Committee, which is an explanation of funds that are, being received by Anderson County. And just, you know, feel free to ask any questions here, but just a very high level look. There are two pots of money. One is called the subdivision funds, and then the second pot is abatement funds. Subdivision funds are funds that come directly to us, and if you recall signing on as signatories to the settlements, that enabled Anderson County to get this direct receipt of payments. The 15%, the easiest way to think about it is subdivision are past and think future for abatement. And it doesn't necessarily mean that subdivision funds are used to, you know, fill budget gaps or recoup costs for previous damages incurred by opioids. I'm just saying for ease of understanding, it's kind of good to remember it that way. The subdivision funds can be used for something like the county has responded, you know, Sheriff's Department, EMS, to overdoses, and or we have done recovery courts. we can use some of those funds to fund those past damages or ongoing or future programs. The abatement funds, so the state of Tennessee receives another big block of funds. And I don't want to get your eyes glazed over, but they get 70% of those funds, and they go into the Opioid Abatement Council. By agreement in the law, 35% of that is earmarked for local government. So we get our 15% that we don't have to ask permission and you know, worry about much of anything. The 35%, we have to do something that's in line with those multi-page outline that's in your agenda packet. So it can be recovery, it can be you know, treatment, it could be working with nonprofits, it can be prevention. There are a whole host of things, as you can see by the sheer number of pages here. Pretty much everything. The Attorney General's office did a really great job of working with various parties to come up with practically anything and everything they could think of to spend the funds on. And we do have to report on the expenditure of these funds. The subdivision funds, basically, we only report if we've used it for something that's unallowable. And this isn't extensive, but basically the highlight unallowable expense is if we want to use it for attorney fees, you know, to work on any opioid legislation or litigation or anything like that. So it's basically, as long as they don't hear from us, they assume that we're complying with that. These abatement funds, we do have to report. Some folks are putting together councils on, you know, making recommendations for how to expend the funds. And what I did, I put in your packet there from back in March, and this isn't the latest. I think we've received one more smaller payment. I can get that for you by full commission. I just forgot to ask Robbie today. The smaller ones, you know, these will go for 18 years, and I put a little spreadsheet in there for you of what we've received so far, and then I wrote on there, you know, like for instance, Johnson & Johnson, we got a big payment, but that's because they paid years 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 all at once. Back to some folks are putting together councils to make recommendations to commission or to the county for how to spend the funds. And I just thought for a starting point, I would throw out the idea of a task force comprised of a smaller number of commissioners, say 3, 4, 5 members, and then encourage that task force to start outreach to various organizations. And some folks are putting together councils, but I can tell you, just following the opioid issue for many, many, many years, there are a lot of really good organizations out there, and there are a lot of different perspectives, you know, whether it's mental health, medically assisted treatment, prevention services, you name it, there are just a host of organizations. And so the reason I suggested just commissioners, you all could take, you know, time to interview or to discuss or have meetings and bring in 2 or 3 folks to discuss what they would use the money for. And then if you put those members on in a voting capacity, then you run the risk of maybe the votes are weighed for their particular program. And so this would give you more leeway. That's just a discussion for a starting point. But I did think it was worth, you know, this is going to be a continuous flood of money, and I'm sure there's going to be one-offs where maybe folks come to you all with an idea and maybe come to commission or go to budget committee with an idea, but it might to Commissioner Palmer's point about planning, it might help if you just got together and said, well, at least this is a framework for how we'd like these ideas to flow on how we can make the greatest impact with these dollars in our community for what's going on in our community. So,
Yeah.
Sure.
As I understand, some of these funds can be utilized by faith-based organizations.
yes, it's specifically in there, faith-based and nonprofits.
Yes.
Yep, yep.
Yes.
Is the money that's already been received in a separate restricted account?
Yes, they are, and in fact, the auditors came out recently with new guidance on how to restrict them, but we do have to keep them separate. So you do have to have the subdivision funds in one particular restricted code, and then the abatement funds in another.
Do you have a ballpark of the balances in those?
The abatement, and to my knowledge, we've not received anything else in this particular fund. That's the big payment. That was $425,159.28. And we received that March 9th.
Okay.
And then the subdivision funds, and then we're going to be receiving additional, so, you know, here's what we have, what I put in your packet, but then they're continuing to do other settlements, and this list will probably grow.
Yeah.
One of the things too, on the abatement funds, that is calculated based on not only our population, but also the impact of opioids in our community. So they measure things like overdose, fatal overdose, and so they will be re-examining that distribution, I think every 4 years. They're going to take a look. And the goal is, if we're doing a good job and our numbers improve, then they're going to shift some of our dollars. I mean, it won't be massive. Some of our dollars to another county that's maybe struggling. So those amounts so far, I totaled, I can't. Subdivision in December of 2022, we received $154,348. But that was the Johnson & Johnson for 5 years of payments. Then we received another one for $40,518, and then another for $38,554. Both of those two payments were distributor payments, and there are payments that are from the manufacturers of the opioids, and then some from the distributors of opioids. So they're smaller amounts, but they're gonna, I mean, you can do something with, that makes a real impact in your community over 18 years, that amount of money each year.
I agree. Any questions? Commissioner Barron?
Now then, did the cities also get opioid funds like Oak Ridge and Norris and Rocky Top and?
So,
Stuff like
I'll
that.
have to get back with you on where there was a population cutoff. So yes, definitely City of Oak Ridge. I know City of Clinton. To my recollection, it was 10,000. I think they couldn't, basically, these are national settlements, and then we have our little Tennessee settlement that must, within reason, comply with the national settlement. And they had to have a cutoff somewhere, otherwise you'd be making all of these payments, which would be very negligible to, you know, a small town. They
Yeah.
might get $178, you
Yeah,
know.
I saw one on there that was just
Yes.
ridiculously small and
Yes.
everything like that, you know, and everything. But, you know, I was just thinking, if someplace like Rocky Top that didn't hardly get anything because it's small population, you know, how we're gonna shift that around and everything like that, if they wanna go in with us or, something like that.
Yeah,
Or, you know, if we do have a big project, then maybe we could combine with the City of Oak Ridge
yes,
for something
Yeah.
like that, you know, if it's really gonna take some substantial money to pull off and everything. And frankly, I don't know where the biggest problems are.
right,
I was thinking we ask like Nathan Sweet and the sheriff and see if they could come up with like a map of where their most calls are for drugs and opioids and stuff like that, you know, give us an idea if we're gonna have a facility or something to give out drug treatment and stuff like that. Obviously you need to put it close to where the project is. I also read about some, actually a city had like a medical van that would go from spot to spot, you know, that sort of thing. And since we're spread out over a large area, something like that might work, you know. Another thing I read about is fentanyl test strips. Some cities are giving them out to drug users so that they can test their drugs to make sure they don't have fentanyl in them. You know, of course that's a big killer, but I didn't see that in the covered list. So, you know, whether we could do that or not, I don't know.
I think you can do, if it's prevention related, I will look.
It's not really preventive.
Yeah.
It might prevent overdose, so in that way it could be, you
Yeah.
know, because fentanyl is so deadly.
Yeah. There is I mean, there's definitely a lot to talk about with it, and to your point about, you know, partnership, there is also the state, they're remaining 35% in the, in their fund, they are accepting applications for. So if we get into a discussion and there are other things where we see opportunity for partnerships or even partnerships with other counties, we want to do larger projects that we couldn't just, you know, go at alone. We can put together a grant application and apply for some additional funds. So,
Yeah.
yep, yeah.
Well, we got this funky part of Oak Ridge over there that's in Rome County.
Yes.
I saw on the thing that Nathan sent me today, it's only 175 pages or so, but the map of the service by the ambulance service and everything, it's weird.
Yes, and Nathan does, I mean, he tracks the administration of Narcan. You know, the thing with a lot of these drugs that are abused, there's another drug, and you may have seen the news where they're talking about, I think, the top 5, and Nathan may remember the name of it, but it's some kind of animal sedative, and
Ketamine?
no, is it, what? Trank, the one it's like xylazine or, okay. Okay. That one is now on the TBI list, but in discussing this with the medical examiner, just 3 years ago, we only saw in Anderson County or in our region just a few cases, and then last year a few more, and then this year it just completely shot up. And the issue with this one is when they overdose, you administer Narcan is completely ineffective. And so, you know, Nathan could speak more to what the treatment protocol is in you know, in those cases. But it's just this constant, you know, moving needle, you know, what we do. So I know I personally am a big advocate for the prevention side and maybe getting into the schools at an earlier age and trying to change that culture of, you know, of use. So it's a big problem. It's
Yeah, I
definitely.
understand that.
But, and the only reason I suggest something like this is that maybe you all as commission, you know, this is all under your authority, that you have some kind of game plan, because it's a lot of money, you know, and maybe you just have at least a framework for what your priorities are as commissioners. And then it'll help you make better decisions as projects come in front of you, if you have that framework.
Commissioner Mays?
Yeah, I'd like to go ahead and, unless there's anybody else that wants to say anything, make a motion to create the opioid settlement stewardship task force.
I'll second that.
Okay. I think one of the things too to consider is, you know, we talk about the sheriff's department, we talk about EMS, of course, they're directed. But this opioid situation affects industry as well. It's a big thing. And Anderson County, I always say, is a beacon, so we always think outside the box. But it affects industry, of course it affects the homes, you know, the Child Advocacy Center and all that. But that's something else that we could bring in, like some of the HRs, you know, from some of the major plants around, to see, you know, what we can do to help them. Because I know I've heard of, you know, one local plant that actually has Narcan in their cafeteria. Yeah. So, I mean, it's something.
Yep.
So we got a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
How many members we gonna name?
Well, I think what this is about is just being able to create a task force, and then 3 commissioners, and then maybe let the mayor decide who else, you know, like, you know, maybe from industry, or do you want us to draft something up, or?
I mean, go ahead and choose your number of commissioners. I just suggested 3 or 5, whatever was a good, you know, working group to come back to.
I would think if it's possible to have 5, maybe that well represents the geographics of Anderson County.
Or 3 from each committee, 3 from budget, 3 from,
That might be a good idea.
yeah.
There.
Do we already know what areas are most affected? That Commissioner Barron was talking, do we already have that data?
No.
I don't know if we have it.
We got some of that data in the sheriff's office. As far as arrests and things of that nature. And we can cross-check that with Nathan's data.
Okay, I'm just thinking for this representation, we definitely want those commissioners to.
If you
be
go
a
by
part of it.
numbers, Oak Ridge, I have the bigger numbers, but they're more populated. And if you're going by the most concentrated, it'd be, you know, in the north end of the county.
Okay.
And then Clinton kind of falls right in between. Okay, so the motion is for how many commissioners?
Mayor, did you envision, who else did you envision on that? Just commissioners?
I just envisioned commissioners.
Just commissioners.
So, I mean, but you can do whatever you want. That was only my suggestion. I just was, you know, I've been part of some of the working groups in the community and that look at these issues. And I think they are excellent voices that you all need to hear from. But as far as serving on a committee, I'm thinking you keep it smaller, able for you all to meet, you know, not have to worry about balancing, is each organization or field of study represented appropriately. I mean, you're just going to get really far into it if you start putting, you know, all those voices on an actual committee. So,
Yeah, the motion, I would like it to be 6 commissioners, 3 from operations and 3 from budget.
Okay. You okay with that, Mayor?
that sounds great.
I'll second, yeah.
All right. How do you want to do you want to wait till we go to full commission and then try to decide who those 6 will be?
Maybe just go through your nominating committee and, you know, whoever wants to sign up.
Yeah, volunteer is.
Yeah.
Should be the first
Yep.
criteria.
Yeah, we could probably
Yeah.
get 6 volunteers.
Okay. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimous.
The next item is the length of service agreement. This was a referral back to operations. Jay had some concerns with the language, and I know he's worked with Ashley in the Treasury, and he's come up with a good idea. So Jay, do you want to address how?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. This is a great program, and I'm all for it. We had a couple of issues in that master document. It referenced employer, employee, and we want to limit that so it extends only to the relationship under the length of service and not to other things like respondeat superior, liability, workers' comp, employee benefits, things of that nature. So I ran this by the mayor. I'll do an acknowledgement and put there on the application. The individual firefighters will submit their application for payment to the county. The county distributes all the money. So I'll work with Robbie and the mayor. We'll develop a application that has all the necessary items that we need to determine how much money goes to each individual firefighter. And they'll come in and sign that. Everything is true on that statement, their length of service, and they'll have an acknowledgement in there limiting our liability, letting them know that they are not employees of Anderson County, letting them know that we don't accept liability for their actions on workers' comp or employee benefits. And just make that statement. It's more of a acknowledgement and clarity, and I'd like to incorporate it in the application process so they'll actually be signing it when they submit their data to determine how much we owe them on that. But that's all it takes. I've been working with the state, thanks to the mayor, and they're all for this, and they're looking at it from a taxation issue. Of course, they referenced IRS 457 code. That's deferred comp. That's what that is. So I knew immediately they're thinking taxation purposes, but I think this will take care of my concerns, and we can move forward with it if you so desire. Thank you.
One of the questions I have, Mayor, is how would that start? Like, say, for instance, everybody starts from zero, because you've got some firefighters that's been there for, 20 years already. So everything just starts at,
So what you approved, if you want to hand that around.
Thank you.
What you all approved at the last operations meeting was that particular exhibit. And I think this committee had asked that we look at a way to adjust the contribution for the years of service. And so there's the contribution guide for 0 to 5 years, and I guess that would be a legal question for Jay on, since we're just starting it, are we able to go ahead and recognize somebody with 16 years of service? And so I don't know. Or if we have to start at ground zero, and then once you get up into those other tiers, be able to. Okay. Okay.
Is that a problem if it's discretionary? As long as they provide certification that they've been a volunteer firefighter for, say, 20 years, they get somebody from the department to sign off on that? Is that a problem going ahead and allowing that person to take a distribution based on 20 years? Would county commission be for that?
well, I don't know.
That's a hypothetical, but that's what we're gonna run into. Or does everything start anew at ground zero right now upon passage of this?
And it may be something I have to ask the state too, or maybe you could talk to
Ashley's
Ashley.
at that conference
Okay.
this week, so she's really doing the administration of it. But I want to say it's discretionary on our part, but I'll make sure. That's what it's going to come down to. Do you want to start anew everybody starts at the same thing, 0 service, or do you want to accept certification from the chief that, hey, this person's been here 16, 17 years or whatever, and distribute that payment accordingly? But I'll find out the answer for you. Thank you.
We've got the chairman of the fire commission here, and I don't know if they've had the opportunity to talk about it. And don't know if you got some thoughts, or what do you think?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No, we have not had any formal discussions about it. We haven't had the information to really discuss it. I know the mayor's exchanged a couple of emails, but I've been waiting to get the.
And I guess that's what we're doing today, is, you know, trying to get something laid out.
I guess from, and again, Jay's obviously the legal counsel, but from a legal standpoint, I have problem with classifying our volunteers as employees. It sounds like they've got it worded such where that's going to be covered, but under Federal Labor Standards Act, it's a very touchy situation to classify, and I'm kind of, you know, interested in how we can offer this type of I'm going to use the wrong term, but retirement package for volunteers that are not employees of this county. They are volunteers, 501(c), most of them, I think, as far as the 5 volunteer fire departments go. So, you know, I'm happy to present, and I think the volunteer fire departments would like to see what it is exactly that is being presented. And again, Mr. Chairman, what you're saying is that's what you're kind of working on, and then we could present it. But my question still is, how can we look at a volunteer as an employee and then establish some type of benefit for that volunteer through the county? That's questionable to me. But I'm here to listen, and that's why I'm here.
And I think we've had, you know, a couple discussions about that, and that's why, you know, we're calling it service award program. And I may be wrong, Jay, but how do you get by the employee thing? And
That's what I spoke about earlier.
yeah,
Here, we're going to do an acknowledgement to say that you are not an employee of Anderson County. You understand you're not an employee of Anderson County. We don't accept liability. We don't accept workers' comp. We don't accept Fair Labor Standards Act, on and on and on, employee benefits and such. But that document, and they reminded me of this, is the master plan. Okay, that's only with the county. And the reason they do it is for taxation purposes. The individual firefighters do not see that document. That's our contract with the state to get the grant money, the distribution of the money to fund this. And we distribute that money to the county at the local level. We can put reasonable restrictions on it. That's why I thought that the application, we need that data anyway in order to compute the payment, the distribution. That'd be a great place to put the acknowledgement form, have their signature and a witness right below it, and also the county's signature. And that knocks it all out. But we will make sure we have something signed, if y'all pass this program, that said that they understand they are not an employee of Anderson County. And that's the best way to do it, to get over that hurdle. And we won't accept any liability for their actions because we really have no supervisory authority over them.
right. Okay.
And thanks, Jay. I would like to be able to take it to the fire commission and, you know, have fire commission's input. That's all I'm saying. So they can decipher it. There's going to be a lot of questions. I'd like for everyone that's involved in it to come to the fire commission meeting and tell them about it. So, because I can't answer all the questions. I don't know what the mayor knows. I don't know what you know.
Commissioner, I'll be glad to come to that fire commission meeting.
And then, you know, it might have been good to talk to them before we did this so we could get feedback, but that's okay. I mean, that's on me. I've mentioned it, but I didn't have any information to really get into it deep, and I didn't want to until I had the exact information I could share with them to answer all the questions. The only other question I have is, you get by that hurdle, or in the way signing this document, who's going to make sure that all of these individuals are, who's going to maintain that piece? Who's going to make sure that Fred Smith didn't leave Claxton Volunteer Fire Department and is still eligible? Who's going to maintain that? Is it going to be a county employee?
The way I envisioned it, if I can answer that, is that the chief of that department has to certify on that form each year. And they should have records of their membership. They're required to have records of their membership. And I don't want to put the onus on the county. I feel like that's why they should submit the necessary paperwork to justify that payment, that distribution, and sign off on it. Because we don't have the ability and the manpower to do that. So we'll have to rely on the chiefs, but I'll be glad to come to the fire commission meeting. I'm always interested in their input on these issues.
I'm open to it. I'm interested in learning more, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you, sir.
To answer some of those questions, we are required just to maintain the paperwork. No volunteer fire department has to participate. We have an opportunity for a grant that opens July 1. It enables us to apply for $5,000 for a contribution for each agency. And if anyone has questions, if a department doesn't want to maintain records of training or when their firemen participate in a call, in order to be eligible to receive a contribution from Anderson County in reward for their service, they don't have to participate. It's, you know, this was something that was created because there was a desire across the state of Tennessee to somehow compensate these volunteer firefighters, and by law there's a prohibition on that. We cannot do that. And so what happened is the state legislature passed this legislation authorizing the Treasury Department. This is a way they can do it under IRS guidelines. You can take advantage of the retirement plan that county employees are eligible to participate in, state employees. And it's just a way for the county to say to the volunteer firefighter, we value you and we're willing to make a contribution. And again, it all depends. It's going to go back on, does their department want to maintain records? Do they want to participate? They do not have to participate. If you pass this, there may be not one single department that wants to participate in this, and they don't have to. But if they want to, it's a great opportunity to put money away and for us to recognize them. Maybe you even make a presentation out of it. Maybe you as a commissioner encourage the agencies in your district to do it. I just think it's a win-win to be able to do this.
I think actually this could be and again, Anderson County would be the beacon, because on one of the rural development committees that I meet, that we have the monthly meetings, this is always an issue, is, you know, volunteer firefighters and stuff, and how, because they have this same issue all across the United States, is less and less volunteers, and what can we do? And once we get the ball, just like taking it to fire commission, this is just about probably trying to put something together.
Yes,
'Cause I
they're
wanna
still,
take this,
I mean,
you
they
know,
could.
nationwide and say,
Yes,
look, this is
yeah.
what Anderson County is doing, and, you know, maybe use it all across the country, because Jay can tell you, you know, from, where was it up north, that, New Jersey or somewhere, that, they sold fireworks or something. You remember when we talked about that? Yeah. Yeah, just to supplement, so.
And I did ask them, so to get off the ground, what you all approved for the eligibility criteria is, and this is a requirement, a volunteer must earn 50 points in a calendar year to be eligible for a contribution. And so volunteers may earn up to 35 points for training, for drills, for attending meetings, or volunteers may earn up to 40 points for participation in any response scenario. So you see there's like a wide, you know, swath there. That's 75 points that they're eligible for. They need 50. And, you know, this, I asked Ashley, can this be, our appendix be amended? And she said, yes, you just, you know, if you want to change, Anderson County, that would be through Budget Committee, would control what that contribution amount is. That's not in this paperwork. This is only we have to have some type of eligibility criteria to get off the ground. So this proposal is very liberal in terms of that. And if chiefs want to say, you know what, we want more focus on response and less on attending the meetings, then I think the chiefs could come back and through fire commission say, hey, we want to restrict meetings and training to only 20 points as part of the eligibility. So, I mean, it's,
So all you're asking
I
for
foresee
is
that
just-
being an
yeah.
ongoing conversation on an annual basis based on what the volunteer departments are seeing, you know.
Yeah, so all we're gonna do is just start.
We're
and
getting
then we'll take
started.
things
If
to
we
the
could
fire
get
commission and
started,
let them,
yes.
yeah, look at it. Okay.
And then, I think at Fire Commission, if, Chairman Wandell wants to see who wants to participate, you know, some may want to, none may want to. And I think that would be, you know, the next step, which is, okay, well, we'll apply for the 5,000 for, say it's Briceville says, yes, I'm all for it, let's do it. We'll maintain a list of the meeting and the, you know, the firefighters, then we could apply, you know, for that $5,000, and that's $5,000 that Anderson County doesn't have to put in, but it helps get us off the ground. And maybe that could be, if we could just get one fire department to be the example, we could show what that would be possible.
Okay. Any discussions or a motion?
Is there, I guess, what would we make a motion? I mean, I thought
It went up to, it was approved by this committee, it went to full commission, and I think Jay just had the, along with Chairman Wandell, that employer language. Jay is going to rectify that through, which that would be years out anyway, but because you have to have vested interest for years before you get receipt. But he is going to create an acknowledgement form that when the employee goes to get a distribution, correct? Or you said application?
The acknowledgement would be incorporated
In the application. They would just be signing that they understand they're not an employee of Anderson County government.
And I thought, you know, we had full support, or a lot of, majority support for this, but it was just based on him talking about.
I just didn't know if you needed a motion tonight, or if we're gonna do,
We actually, I don't mean to interrupt, you know, but Ashley did let me know that she needs, evidently this grant award comes out the 1st of July, and she needs to know immediately after, she said as soon as possible after our county commission meeting, I need to notify her that it passed or failed, so she can get our name in the hat for the money.
It's a
That'd be for-
first come, first served basis.
Yeah.
for the
So-
grant.
Yes.
It's really not one of those things we can let lay for another month. We need to move on it this month. Thank you.
So you're looking, okay.
I don't know, like from parliamentary procedure, there was a question, and Jay's addressed the question, so I guess it just, I don't know if you have a motion, or does it just go back to full commission? I don't know what that parliamentary.
Recommendation for approval.
Okay.
What about the grant? Have you all already received approval to apply for that grant?
No.
Yeah,
It's,
we have
if
to
we
approve
have to
this
have
before we
this
can-
paperwork in the length of service resolution to be able to be eligible for that grant.
Gotcha. Now where I think we're,
Yes, and it's up to 5,000 for each eligible agency, not just 5,000 for the whole county.
So when you say agency, that's each fire department
Yes,
Okay.
and rescue squad,
and rescue squad.
yes.
Okay. I'll pass the guy, we'll make the motion to approve to go ahead with the groundwork so we can apply for the grants. And then
Second.
for all the details to be worked out between the fire commission and full commission.
Motion by Commissioner Isabel, seconded by Commissioner Varyn. Any other discussion? Commissioner Yeager.
I know at one time we had one volunteer fire department that was not 501c3 yet. Are they all now?
That was Medford, and I know they were working on it
It's
over a year
approved.
ago, so.
Yeah, it's
okay.
been approved.
Has it been?
Yeah,
Okay.
2 years, yeah.
All right.
Mhm.
Any other discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Law Director's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first issue I have is the waste management contract, and all we have is the draft. Right now, we presented it purchasing this afternoon. The problem is we have, the mayor and Jeff have one more negotiation session set for Wednesday, am I correct? With waste management. We will have a final document ready for the agenda. It might come out later on Wednesday or Thursday, but we'll have a final contract to send to you on the waste management, the landfill agreement. If you were purchasing, the mayor has separated the two, the hosting agreement, landfill agreement. I understand why, but we'll have those. Which ones? We'll have both of them? Both of them. We'll have both of them ready for county commission, and we'll get the finalized copies to you as soon as we can get it done after this meeting on Wednesday. Before you have the Juneteenth resolution that was requested by Commissioner Beauchamp.
Now, hold on a second, Jay. You don't need any
No.
motion on the waste?
No, it's coming up through purchasing is the way I see it.
Okay.
I do have if I may.
Yes, sir.
Jeff, in the purchasing meeting, kind of towards the end, when I asked about having some type of bin located somewhere throughout the county that it would be for after hours, and he had mentioned TDEC and some other agency in the state is wanting to do away with those. Is there a way, because I know that's something that the commission has talked about quite a bit. I know folks in District 1 have talked about having a place to go after hours because of the landfill being closed early on Saturdays, et cetera, et cetera. But I would just be curious if we could get something from the state. That way we can tell our folks, if that is in fact the case, that these are no longer allowed. Because if they are allowed, I know we're getting an extra bin at East Wolf, but
And Glen Alpine, I believe.
in Glen Alpine, but it's still as great as those are. You know, I just still have the question about the after hours
Understand.
accessibility to a bin. If it's still something that's allowable, I would like to continue to maybe move forward in that discussion.
Right. I think you're talking about like Frost Bottom, the green boxes we have up there. And years ago, we had one up down Brooks Gap, I think, but they made us pull that. But
And you got two sites on 116.
two up there. Those are both green boxes, but we'll try to do that. I've mentioned something to Jeff in one of our meetings with the mayor trying to iron this out about, we're getting to the point where a lot of our convenience centers, the compactors are getting full by about lunchtime on Saturdays. And with the landfill shutting down early, we're running into a problem. So Jeff's trying to renegotiate some of their hours that the landfill's open, maybe get them to stay at a little bit extra, maybe 1 o'clock in the afternoon. That way we can get one more haul out of there, get that fresh compactor empty back, container back, get it hooked up for the rest of the day. But he also mentioned that he's considering the open tops that we've got inside the convenience center, maybe allowing them to be utilized as overflow. The only problem is you can only get, about 5 tons because they're not compacted, where we normally get 20 tons compacted. But Jeff is working on that. He's told me personally, he told myself and the mayor that he is working on that issue a couple of different ways because it is an issue countywide, especially at the big ones. Peak Station, Wolf Valley, and Glen Alpine.
Okay.
I'll talk to him about it tomorrow.
And the good thing about this is having this discussion now, Commissioner Mays, is because the purchasing committee is not televised. And this is one of the major issues that people all across the county
Absolutely.
deal with, and we all, as commissioners, we all get phone calls. And, you know, I had voted no because there's some things in the contract that I wanted to talk to the mayor and Jeff about. And mainly it comes down to the pressures, because I go over to every one of them, the pressure's cut down to 700.
You're one of the first people that brought that to our
You can't compact
attention.
it fully, and then I hear that the tipping fees have went up, so it's gonna cost us approximately an additional $320,000 a year. There's some gray area in there that I've got some real concerns with for the taxpayers of Andrews County, because I get these calls and say, hey, I know what you're talking about, and we've got somebody that's on solid waste that's done this now. You know, that was his career, so he understands. And so these people that's heard this, they're gonna say, you know, we can't dump our garbage, but I looked at you know, that pressure's only at 700. There's no way, you know, it's supposed to be 24 or 21. You're only getting a third. So that increases
That's a
the
great idea.
tipping fees and you know,
Oh, of
all
course.
that. So, you know, those are things I wanna talk about again that we talked about, you know, 10 years.
Please get those to Jeff. We're running tight. Remember, this is something that needs to be approved this month. We'll be on a month-to-month.
And if
with
you remember, they came back and put that, what they would keep that pressure set at, and you won't find that pressure at any of them that I've been to.
That's a great point, Tim. Now, remember, there's gonna be a couple different documents, and you haven't seen what we get back in return for that host agreement. And, but also, we'll have to, we need a side contract. We'll get that done later on for disaster management. Remember, for years, we've got 4 to 6 empty containers if we have a tornado, something like that. We've used them in Claxton before. We rarely have to use them, but it's good to have those. We need to do a side agreement on special waste, and that's really animal control stuff. But we're working on all that, and we'll try to get it to you. If you've got anybody got any ideas, please let Jeff or the mayor know, and once they give me the word, we'll get them all incorporated in the contract and try to get this thing ready to roll on Monday.
Okay. But I
Anything
appreciate
else on
that,
this
Commissioner
issue, I'll
Mays.
be glad to explain what I know. We've got the mayor here, she's been involved in it. But, you know, there was a question that came up with purchasing, how many people got this solicitation on the RFP. I know they casted a wide net on that. It was all the way down to Middle Tennessee, so we tried to get as many competitive bids as we could. But it gets to the point where they get so much money invested in the transportation back to their landfill, it doesn't work out for them.
Yeah.
But please, let us know if you've got any particular issues. And again, this always merges. This is the waste management contract. Remember, Waste Connections is our hauling contractor, so some of the issues may cross over and be specific to hauling or the landfill. But anyway, I'll be glad to help. The mayor will be glad to help, and you can always call Mr. Trebaka. He's very knowledgeable about this. We're blessed with him as an asset. Any other questions on waste management?
Commissioner Wandale.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I was wanting to attend solid waste meeting, but maybe I've missed them, but they seem to have been canceled the last few months. Is that right?
The last one did not have a quorum.
So I guess my question is, we're in the middle of negotiating for waste management, and you know, you've learned a lot from the purchasing meeting. I don't know, as a commissioner, what's changing. Now, what will be said perhaps by the mayor and the law director is, well, you got a copy of it. That's fine. What I don't have as commissioner is knowledge of what the new contract will be. I'm not advocating we publish it in the paper, but I believe as commissioners, we're all entitled to that information. For instance, for me, I'd like to know if the tipping fee to them is going to go up for us to receive more money. You know, it's been a certain number, 50 cents a ton for perpetuity, it seems to me, from other counties that dump at that location. I may have that wrong, but again, I'd have to understand all the moving parts. But I'd like to see us as a county be more open to more requests to waste management. And I know the mayor's doing a good job, but I don't know what she's doing because I don't have the information. I'd like to have it. I'd like to have a summary. I'd like to have an email that says to the chairman in this body that says, here are the bullet points we're working on. For us to give suggestions to the law director and the mayor on what the contract should be, it's kind of hard to do if you don't know what they're negotiating now or not negotiating. Because, I mean, raise your hand if you know what the contract says.
Yeah, I've got a copy of it, and we did talk about the bullet points, you know, on purchasing, but some of the highlights was all the increases.
I'd like to see, I know it's a different contract maybe, but, you know, we don't see a lot of revenue from recyclables. You know, there's a mandate, state law, TCA code, I don't know the number of it, but we gotta reduce waste, and recycling is a big part of that. And I know the mayor and Jeff do a good job at meeting that number, and I think it's 25% by year. But I'd like to see us get more. I'd like to see us at this time negotiate more. I'd like to set in on the meeting. I can promise the mayor I won't say nothing, but I'd like to at least set in and listen to the waste connection or waste management negotiations. Since I haven't been able to go to a solid waste committee, that's where I wanted to go ask the questions, but they've been canceled, so I couldn't go there to ask the questions. So, you know, I'm sorry to do it here, but this was the only opportunity I have. So I just encourage all of you to get the information you can, make the suggestions you can. I'd like to see us get more money on, you know, Jay, does that money come from Waste Connections? You know, what is it, the,
Recyclables?
yeah.
That's on the hauling contract,
Oh.
Waste Connections.
Could we do that with waste management too?
The transportation hauling?
No. Could we ask them to give us some money like Waste Connections does so we can give it out to our kids? You know what I'm talking about. I'm using the wrong term.
Community Needs Fund?
Yeah.
That'll still be there. That'll be in the separate agreement.
That's through Waste Connections.
No, that's through Waste Management.
So the $40,000 we get a year, is that the one we're talking about? For the commissioners to give out to the schools?
It's 12,000.
Yeah, I'd like to see it be
12,000.
about 40, you know.
Especially if it goes up, like it's going up. There should be a percentage, there's what you're saying.
And Mr. Chairman, I'm gonna be very clear. I'm not advocating the mayor's doing anything wrong at all.
Oh, no,
It's not easy, to be in her shoes with this type
Well,
of.
what's hard is.
But she
we-
needs help, I
Yeah.
think. I mean, not saying she can't do it, but the more people that can help sit beside her, the better is all I'm trying to advocate.
I think what really don't help Anderson County or anybody else is when you don't have more people that's putting out a competitive bid.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they just kinda rule the roost because nobody else is bidding.
So for me, since it was asked, I'd like to see the tipping fee increase to Anderson County, not Anderson County to them, but us get
I
more.
don't have that, Commissioner, but I'll get it as soon as the negotiations are over Wednesday. I'll send out the finalized version.
Are we asking for more than 50 cents a ton like we did before?
I put it all in the purchasing agenda, it's on there. So our post fee in the last contract was $1, and then this one it's $2.50.
Oh, that's great, thank you. All right, so, and I guess Annette's still sending us all the agendas, so I should have that in my emails,
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, sorry, take
No
it.
problem, sir. Great comments. Anybody else on this issue? Okay, thank you. Number 2, the Juneteenth resolution. As you know, that's been passed by the federal government and also the state of Tennessee. Governor Lee signed that a few weeks ago. Commissioner Beauchamp asked me to put a resolution together. You've got that before you. Any questions on that issue?
Yeah, I would like to talk about this because the resolution states that June 10th is the formal is the formal end of slavery in the United States. That's not historically correct.
It's
The
2
formal-
years after the Emancipation
Yeah,
Resolution.
no, the formal end of slavery was January the 1st, 1863, when Abraham Lincoln made the Emancipation Proclamation.
Right.
That's the official end, not June 19th, 1865. That is historically incorrect. I would also, I do have a short,
Hang on just a second, I'm sorry, I'll fix that for you, sir. Where you at?
it says Juneteenth formally honors the end of slavery.
Which one?
First one. June 10th formally honors the end of slavery in the United States. Did you give me something different?
Juneteenth, yeah.
It's not 10th, it's 10th.
Juneteenth.
Juneteenth.
Yeah, Juneteenth.
Yeah, what I was trying to say, I guess, I put in there the Emancipation Proclamation was signed 2.5 years prior to that. And evidently, the word didn't get out for various reasons.
Well, I want to talk about that too, because I do have a history of that, but.
I'll be glad to insert whatever you want there, sir.
Yeah.
Are we talking about, I'm sorry to interrupt, but are we talking about that, or are we talking about when the United States actually abolished slavery through the 13th Amendment?
The dates are the Emancipation Proclamation, okay? Then what happened on Juneteenth is the federal troops rode into Galveston, Texas, and found out there was still people enslaved. And the general read a announcement from the president and let those people know it had been hidden from them for 2.5 years. And some for selfish reasons, they had come home from the war and not told the enslaved people that were working for them. Some said that they were keeping them through the harvest season, but I'm certainly open to any edits here that you have. This is just a draft, sir.
Yeah, the last sentence there says Juneteenth formally honors the end of slavery in the United States. The end of slavery in America was January the 1st, 1863, not Juneteenth, not June 19th, 1865.
I think what they're using the word Juneteenth is in a general term, so they don't have any specific day because of what I think what they're.
No, but the specific date is.
Right, for the Emancipation Proclamation.
That was the formal end of slavery in America, not June the 19th, 1865.
And Jake
That
put
is
that in
historically,
there.
that is historically incorrect. But, you know, Jay is correct. I read this proclamation, and you're absolutely correct. What happened was what you said, that on that date when General Granger rode into Galveston, he did find out that the slaves were not slaves. They were actually being held hostage because they were free 2 years ago. So they were being held hostage by the community in that area. So,
Some of them had no idea the war was over.
well, that's debatable because everyone knew during that time that there was a Emancipation Proclamation. You traveled very, very fast. Can you imagine you were a slave and you hear that, you understand that the war is coming to an end and we will be free on January the 1st, 1863, but they were under the threat of a massacre if they were to procure that freedom. And so it was 2 months after the surrender of Lee that they got down to Galveston. Not 2 years, it was 2 months after the surrender of Lee is when they got down to Galveston. So the idea that it was somehow hidden for 2 years, that's just false. They knew that they were going to be set free. The minute Lee surrendered, the Union Army went down to Galveston to make sure that all the slaves were free. It took them 2 months, from April, to June, 2 months. So that's how they were set free. And it wasn't that they were hidden, that the Union forces didn't want them to be free. That's how they maintained that freedom, because they were actually being held hostage down there. So I think it's not accurate to say that the Juneteenth formally honors the end of slavery in the United States, because that was done January the 1st, 1863.
I appreciate
And so
that.
I think that I don't like it when we have to modify our history. Not that you're doing that, but I'm just saying.
Every word in here just about
Yeah.
came from documents I pulled through
Yeah.
research. This is not Jay Yeager's
No, I
interpretation,
understand that, yeah.
And I'm sorry, but I appreciate your comments.
Yeah.
If you've got any other changes or anybody else, this is a draft, it's
Yeah.
written on there.
It's very good,
Please get
yeah.
those to me and I'll get them incorporated and ready for you for next Monday, but thank you for
Yeah.
your comments.
Yeah, so that's my only point, is that let's be historically accurate.
So I guess what you're asking, Jay, is you'll redraft this, but you're asking for us to send it to county commission, full commission, to see if we'll
I'm gonna
agree to
take
have
out, if that's
another.
okay, I'm gonna take out what Commissioner Allen noted here, Juneteenth
Yeah.
formally honors the end of slavery in the United States. I'm gonna edit that out, and anything else anybody else has got.
But it's about giving an extra holiday, right?
Yes, that's correct, sir.
Okay. Commissioner
I guess and I don't want to get into a historical debate tonight at all. But I guess the problem I have is I have a very different interpretation of A, the Emancipation Proclamation, and B, when slavery did actually end, if we're going to make changes to our resolution. The Emancipation Proclamation was simply freeing slaves in states not under Union control. Did not mean every area in the country. In 1865 is when Congress passed the ending, the abolishment of slavery. It was then ratified later in 1865. To me, that would mean the true ending of slavery.
That's the 13th Amendment, is you referring to?
Yes.
Yes.
But the Emancipation Proclamation did not include every slave in the country. It only included those in states that were not under Union control.
That's right.
So I would just, before we start making changes and putting things down on paper as the truth, again, Commissioner Allen is an incredibly intelligent guy, and I have no reason to doubt what he's saying. But, you know, when I wrote my thesis in college, it was literally about the abolishment of slavery at LMU. And I just have a totally different perspective of those series of events in history. And so I think that we're running into a very subjective time on this resolution that I would hate to, I don't know if it has anything to do with the resolution, if we need to even have it in there, because, you know, some might throw in another date, but that is my understanding of
I'm gonna take
history.
that out, so
Yeah.
there's no controversy there.
Yeah, let me just add some more to what Commissioner Mace was saying. Actually, Tennessee, they freed the slaves before 1863. If you didn't know that, Tennessee freed the slaves early, okay? Also, the Chickasaw Indian tribe, they didn't free their slaves until 1866. So the date that I would use would have to be some date in the Emancipation Proclamation, but that was when only the states in rebellion, those slaves were freed there. But the 13th Amendment was the formal freeing of all the slaves, like Mr. Mays was saying. So I do have some problems with using the Juneteenth at all. You know, it's just something that's historically not factual at all when it comes to the freeing of slaves.
Mr. Chairman, is it possible just to not get into this debate, and if the county is looking to add an additional holiday, because you have the federal doing Juneteenth, and I think the state has now just adding an extra holiday instead of doing a resolution, because I don't know if we have in our history books a resolution on every other holiday that we're recognizing. I mean, you know, are we gonna do a resolution for Christmas and what Christmas means to different people? I mean, how about we just forget the resolution and just adopt one additional holiday? I mean, that's just an offer of
Well, we
a
had this
compromise since we
discussion
have a
in-
debate.
Yeah, the last term, of county commission, it was brought up by Commissioner Scott, and it was, if you remember, you know, we went all the way around the room about it and talked about, and I think Jay even talked about creating a floating holiday, and I don't think we ever really got anywhere with it. We just had a lot of discussion.
Yeah, you were, I think, where you landed was you did not want to eliminate one of the holidays that was there.
That's right, we'd have to
And
eliminate
so,
a holiday and.
If you wanted to
if you do
add
make it a
an
holiday,
additional day,
do you close the, and this is what the law director was talking about to
Yep.
me earlier, it's another day that you close the courthouse, and, you know, if it's closed 14 days already, you know, this is where the people come do their business.
Well, I can tell you what Commissioner Beauchamp told me, that all the state agencies are observing this. That means the courts will be closed, both Chancery, child support, circuit, criminal. The clerks for those courts will be closed. The DA's office will be closed in recognition of the new state holiday. And again, I've said this previously, just because we give a holiday doesn't mean the courthouse has to be closed. You look at EMS, you look at sheriff's office employees, dispatch, they accrue holidays, but they're working on these days. They're working all the time. And if an individual office wanted to stay open, they're welcome to. The mayor wanted to keep the courthouse. This does not say anywhere in here we're closing the courthouse. If you want to close the courthouse, that's a different issue, but that's up to the individual office holders. I can see that, I even hate to talk to them because I hadn't discussed it, but I could see the court clerks saying, hey, we're not gonna have any business this day, we might just close, but, and the DA, of course, is closing, but, we accrue holidays, and some people, like in the sheriff's office and EMS and dispatch, they may take them several months later, because they're working on those days, and, thank God. But, and again, you don't have to close the courthouse. That's another procedure that we have. Just because we have a holiday doesn't mean you have to close the courthouse. But anyway, however you want to handle this is up to me. I'm open to edits, discussion, and I'll try to answer any questions you may have.
Mr. Chairman, do we know how much it will cost us to have another holiday? How much the holiday costs us? Do we know that number? I asked Kim that earlier today, but she hadn't got back to me.
That's come up before, but I don't remember now. Commissioner Palmer?
That was my question, of paid holidays. So we would be going from 13 to 14 paid holidays.
Do you remember what it was, Mayor?
Yeah, it's,
I'd have to find out.
Kim had it, I think Kim had a
It-
spreadsheet.
yeah,
And-
like,
and
like,
from that
here's the
spreadsheet,
spreadsheet, yeah, it's
that's what
13
it is.
holidays now. The high is 15. One, two, look like 4 counties have 15 holidays. We're at 13. One county has 10. So we're kind of in the middle.
Poor Harrogate. They barely even recognize Christmas up there. Wow.
Well, and I'd throw out another statistic too, the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, private sector, the private employers, they average 8 paid holidays. And so when you look at that, you know, we're above,
Yeah, we're
above the
doing
norm.
How many, of the 4-day weekends do we have right now?
2,
This year we've got
2.
and one's around July the 4th,
Right.
isn't it?
Christmas.
I know that's been an issue that I've heard from people in the past, because it'll be July the 6th or 2nd or something like that. They expect the courthouse to be open and it's closed
Mhm.
for that 4-day weekend. So I don't know if we, without raising the number, could we just pull one of those days, observe Juneteenth and have a 3-day weekend instead of a second 4-day weekend? Because I think that 4 days is a long time to be
Yeah.
closed for the
Yeah,
courthouse.
I understand. The way we've handled this in the past is you can have a floating holiday, but the way it works out, the best way to do it is just like I said with the sheriff's office, just allow them to accrue another day. If you want to take off another day, they can accrue another day and use that holiday if they've already accrued it to extend the 2 that we have, the 4th of July weekend and Christmas. But you know, you don't have to add another holiday, but I would like to recognize Juneteenth, as Commissioner Beauchamp has stated. You know, it is a memorable part in our history. But again, and the federal government has it, and so does the state as of a few weeks ago. But however you wanna handle this. is
So
fine.
we can actually do it without having resolution.
Sure.
To Commissioner Palmer's point, you know, we don't resolution Christmas or,
You approve the,
July
remember, once a
4th.
year, you approve the holiday schedule.
Yeah.
It comes before this body and you approve it. This is just a more significant way of handling and recognizing that day.
what's the will of this committee?
Mr. Law Director, you were saying that people could accrue holiday time, accrue it?
The people that have to work,
Yes.
that's what we do.
So it wouldn't have a name, it would just be time that they could
Well, they normally
use.
have a name
A name for
associated
it?
with them, but they don't.
Okay.
Say, for instance, Christmas. You may not be able to take Christmas off.
Yes.
And the examples are EMS, sheriff and dispatch and people like that, emergency
Yeah.
management. But they still have that holiday. They can
Yeah.
use it a different time.
Yes, okay. Oh, I
Well,
see.
How we discussed this last time is it was like a floating holiday, and they could take it off that day or any other day of the year.
With their supervisor's approval.
Right, I think that's what we,
Yeah,
Talk
I
about
just, this one, floating holiday doesn't seem to do justice to the day, but that's just my point.
well, that's true.
You know, just to say, hey, we got a floating holiday, there's something inside of me that says I'd like Anderson County to take a stand and say, we honor Juneteenth, one way or the other. Whether you wanna do it by resolution or putting it on the county holiday schedule you approve once a year.
So then to Chairman Anderson's suggestion is if we do away with one of the July the 4th, because especially people like me that forget to get your tags that was due in June, you think, you know,
Yeah, I've heard all those.
Yeah.
Or you, I don't know, maybe you pull this and wait till the holiday schedule comes around next year, you can do it as you please, but Juneteenth, maybe the special recognition is you can take it anytime during the year that you want. Cause that's honestly what we do for emergency services.
So that'll bump us up to having 14.
14.
Not to specifically speak on the actual date and the purpose, but just to define what a holiday looks for EMS personnel.
Okay.
Currently, we pay them an additional 8 hours of regular pay for every holiday. If the staff member selects to bank that time to use it in the future, they have that choice, but they must notify us that they decide to do that. We have a small number that decide to do that so they can bank it to use it in the future. Again, it's 8 hours because that's what we've adopted as an 8-hour holiday. Our staff, some people work 14 hours, some people work 9 hours, some people work 24 hours. So we pay them 8 hours of straight time in addition to whatever they're making for that shift. And if they don't work that day, they get 8 hours of straight time, which a majority of our staff takes. So we typically pay out a holiday during that pay period. Admin staff typically take it off, most of them.
Thank you.
Are, for any of these holidays, these 13 holidays, is there an occasion where the courts are closed but the courthouse is open?
I think the state recognizes 12 of these, so there's
I think it's
11.
11.
State recognizes 11, and we have the 2 extra days. Well, that's when the courts are all gonna be closed on those days the state
on the
recognizes.
11.
I think the
Okay.
state has
Stay
one or
on.
two that we don't recognize, and they shut down court.
But the offices elect to stay open, the other,
The county offices.
the county offices.
Yes, they do.
yeah.
They'll stay
No,
open.
but the courts will be closed, and the support, like public defender, DA's office, those are usually shut down those days.
Chairman Anderson.
I want to make a motion to recognize Juneteenth as a holiday for Anderson County, but we'll keep the number of the holidays at 13, and that would give the employees and the supervisors would need to work out if they want to take a 4-day weekend instead of Juneteenth or something like that. So I wanna make a motion to make Juneteenth recognized as a county holiday, but I don't wanna raise that number from 13 to 14. I wanna keep it at 13. And then we'll address it in the next, when we do the next calendar or whatever, where we're gonna
Okay.
take those
So
days.
you want me to amend this resolution or just wait till later to deal with the county?
Well, I think we could, I
Because
would just
I'll
make the
put it
motion to
in here
approve it
that
without the resolution.
We're gonna give Juneteenth, okay, but
Mhm.
that can be a holiday that can be taken once it's accrued at a later date. That would allow them to use it on that 4th of July weekend, and you could cut that second day on the 4th of July.
Yeah, that's,
The only problem is you're gonna have state offices closed on that day here. But
So we can get that
if
motion.
if we've got clerks that are gonna be wanting to close, they can use it that day.
would that be, that wouldn't be effective till next year though, right?
Well, it's effective when passed, and that Juneteenth is the day we, meet,
Yeah,
June 19th, so it would be an accrued county holiday next year.
for next year, yeah.
So the motion is, will you repeat that if you can?
I want to make a motion for the county to acknowledge Juneteenth as a county holiday, but we cap 13 days.
Okay.
And so next year, we can decide if we want to be closed on Juneteenth and just have 3 days off for the 4th of July instead. That's kind of where I'm thinking, is that we take away.
Could the employees that chose to accrue Juneteenth use that as an extra day on the 4th of July weekend?
Well, that's gonna get us back into that situation of being open when the courts are closed, and or do we do that at all right now? Is the courthouse open at all when the,
I wish Commissioner Bochamp.
Yeah, I mean,
was a lot familiar.
there's a lot of times, like judges, either the state
Conference and stuff like that.
conferences, but the state also recognizes, it's either, I think Veterans Day or one of those days in the fall, they recognize that and are closed, and we are not.
Is that President's Day?
It may be, it's,
Columbus Day. I think you're right, Phil.
and courts are closed, but the county is still open.
As a former circuit court clerk, they've got plenty to do, even if they don't have,
Oh, there's always,
yeah, even if they're not holding court,
yeah,
Sure.
people gotta pay fines.
yeah.
Okay, that motion is fine. We don't need this resolution. I understand it.
I think we're gonna get bogged down in
Okay.
the history
Sounds good.
debate if we have the resolution, but if we can approve it without a resolution, I
You got that?
would make that as a
Annette?
motion.
Yeah, but you know, the 4th doesn't always fall on the holiday.
Yeah.
You know, weekend,
Right.
it falls through the week, so it's not always a 4-day weekend.
I think I have
It's
a
just two
question.
concurrent days off, just
So-
like Christmas Eve and Christmas, and, yeah.
However it falls, it could be a Wednesday,
I,
Thursday.
well, part of what I'm wanting to approve this for is to kind of really, my goal is to get rid of this 4-day weekend around the 4th. I mean, it's great, but I know it's a great benefit, but it's a long time to be off in the middle of the summer. For people kind of expect the offices to be closed around Christmas. If there's an extra day off, people understand, but in July the 6th or July the 2nd, they expect the courthouse to be open, I think, so, but, so.
I got,
It's
You have
bold
comment?
coming from North Lake Road.
Well, I think the county employees are underpaid anyway, personally. So, I'm okay with giving them the day off with pay. Just add that in there, but, and I think we do need to recognize Juneteenth. If the federal government's gonna be closed, state office is gonna be closed, the banks are gonna be closed, we ought to recognize it just like everybody else.
so the Juneteenth holiday always falls on June the 19th? Is that always that way? Does it always fall on that date?
Yeah, June 19th is, June 19th, whether it winds on Monday or Friday, or Saturday or Sunday.
So are we giving them would we give them a 17th off if it was,
You're right.
in the day that it was on Sunday?
Next year is Wednesday.
Commissioner Yeager?
Boy,
Yeah,
boy.
I just looked, next year, it's on a Wednesday, Juneteenth. So it's not a Monday holiday, it's
Right in the middle of
date
the week.
holiday.
But if it's federally and state recognized, I think it's a little more justifiable for us to be closed that day as opposed to 4 days in July. So I don't think we need to raise the number.
I agree with you, yeah.
What you were saying about July the 4th, the 2 days, the only time there would not be 2 days off would be if it fell on a Wednesday, where it wouldn't be a 4-day weekend.
Well, I think commission has voted in the past to give it anyway. That was kind of a trade-off, I think, at one point for not giving a raise. We gave them that other day off, and then we gave them the raise, but we didn't take the day off away. So
That's correct.
I think it's just kind of a thing that's gotten adopted.
Okay.
Commissioner McKinney will remind us of that.
Oh, yeah.
We might even get a call from Mary Murphy. Just explain it fully, how it occurred. But I'm here. Anything you want. That
we-
sounds reasonable.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay.
And the motion was to observe, but not to increase from 13 to 14.
Right.
And not to have a resolution.
Yeah, I was just gonna
Yeah.
approve it without needing a resolution.
Okay.
That's cool.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Oh, Mayor.
Just for clarification, so you're recognizing the holiday, and then to be determined next year, you will set the holiday schedule.
Right.
Yes, and Juneteenth will take one of the July 4th holidays.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Well, I mean, isn't that what you?
Yeah, I mean, they'll still have the same,
You're
they'll still have the
saying
same, they'll have 13 holidays off, which is more than most places you would work. But,
But I'm saying that part's not official until
No,
you
that's
go.
correct.
yeah.
Or I guess you normally do that in December, right? Jay?
Oh, we just
December.
approved it.
It's one time a year, so.
We just approved the
Yeah.
holidays.
I know it all runs together for me.
Courts are already working on their schedule ahead of time, so it has to come out first in August. So you'll be addressing it in a couple of months then.
Give you a chance to think about it.
All in favor that understand it? Say aye. Any opposed?
No.
Motion passes.
Okay, thank you. Length of service, we've already handled that tonight. And I just wanted to remind you of two things, the juvenile judge vacancy. We actually went back and forth with the AOC on this. I called to make sure the procedure, if it was our standardized procedure, and they pointed to a state statute that says if you're relieved to go on military duty, that the governor appoints. Well, that same statute, I wasn't even aware of this. That same statute in another line says basically unless our private act, if a private act is on point, designates some other entity. So contacted the lady with the governor's office that does the judicial vacancies. We've dealt with them a couple of times here in the past few years. She was very nice, and she said, do you mind sending me a copy of the private act that establishes juvenile court judge? And I said, sure. She looked at it, and about 6 hours later, she says, no, Anderson County Commission says, because our private act says vacancies will be filled by the Anderson County Commission. So what we'll be doing is the standardized vacancy procedure like we normally do. Although this one has a little extra qualifications, they have to adhere to the constitutional and statutory requirements for a judge in this county. That means residency. That's popped up a couple of times. Judge Hunt is going to be leaving in August and won't return till late May. So this is a temporary position and I believe he said he was going to forfeit his pay. Did he? From the county? Wasn't that in your letter?
I think so, well, I think that's part of the process, and then he's paid, his
Yeah.
position.
Yeah, his
through
possession is a
Sarah
JAG.
Is held, and then he receives his money.
Right, so we're not gonna be out extra money paying
That's my
duplicate judges. So we need to, my point of bringing this to your attention, I'm sorry.
She was asking a question.
Okay.
I'm juvenile, but I'm Judge Hunt.
Right, exactly.
Tracy,
So-
do you want to speak on any of this?
I'm
Just come on up front so everybody can hear you, please.
I just want everyone to know, if they have any questions, that juvenile court is here, and I can answer most of your questions about what we do, how we operate, how much we operate, you know, what juvenile court looks like, and how it goes on a daily basis, and how important this is, that we get somebody in this position that's, Judge Hunt and I have come to the determination, we've taken about like 3 weeks in August and blocked them off, so we're not gonna have court, to get whoever gets in this position kind of up and running, because we have court every day, and we have like substantial dockets. Yeah, well, so we're starting to set a bunch of stuff already in September on our regular, like how Judge Hunt does it. You know, it's just, myself and my staff are just, we're watching this, and we hate to see Judge Hunt go for 9 months. But this is really important to us down in juvenile court. I mean, this directly impacts everything we do every day. So I just want you guys to know that we're here, we can answer any questions, we can, I don't know, it's really important to us, and we just want to make sure that we get a good fit for it to work and run smoothly.
Tracy, I know you got a super busy court.
Yeah.
I work in that building over there.
Yes.
But what I think I hear you saying is, this is not something our general sessions judges that have concurrent jurisdiction could absorb.
They could not, there's no
Okay?
way.
So, we'll need to point somebody to fill Judge Hunt, because of the docket over there is just tremendous. It's not something that, we could just absorb into the already busy 2 general sessions. But, I'll ask on next Monday to go ahead and put out the notice of this vacancy, if that's okay with y'all.
Commissioner Mason?
The last time we appointed a juvenile judge to fill a vacancy, the county created a committee, because it's not very often that the county commission appoints a member of the judiciary. I don't know if that's something they want to go down again. There was a back and forth of whether or not that was a good idea or not, but nevertheless, it was a committee created where the commissioners were involved. Also, I think a member of CASA was on there, a practicing attorney, and so forth, just because they had familiarity with juvenile court. If you've never really experienced juvenile court, it's not what you watch, it's not anything you watch on TV, I promise you that. So, I know time is of the essence. I don't know if it's important that we even entertain that. You know, with it being a temporary appointment and it not fulfilling a vacancy and someone running for this, I just think that's something we need to think about, is whether or not, because again, it's not like anything that we deal with or that we may think that we have a little bit of knowledge of. Just want to throw that out there.
What if Tracy and her team gives us a list of guidelines, what would, the questions that we would need to ask of anybody that's applying for it? So, I mean, we can come up with our own questions, but of course,
Well,
her committee would know what would be.
yeah, I mean, I don't think that's inappropriate, but to be fair, I know, I mean, there's no secret in 2010 who I wanted it to be. And of course, I advocated for, at the time, Judge Fisher to be appointed by this body. But for it to be a fair process, because we got to know Judge Fisher, we liked him, he was our friend. But in all fairness to the other practicing attorneys who may be equally as qualified, I think that their input is invaluable. but I just I don't want it to be the end-all, be-all, per se.
Right. Chairman Anderson.
I know Jay mentioned the residency requirement.
Gotta
Saw
be in
you-
standing with the Board of Professional
To
Responsibility.
have lived here within, you have to have lived here for a year, I
Mhm.
guess, is that part of it?
That's correct. That's a constitutional mandate.
And I saw you grimace a little bit with that, and I think maybe we were thinking the same thing on if we're gonna appoint someone who's probably tried cases in juvenile court for a temporary amount of time, so if we appointed somebody who's gonna be a judge for 9 months, and then they go back to practicing in juvenile court, are we gonna be creating a,
If they
Big-
conflict,
big
if they
time.
handled that case previously, you would.
and it just seems like with the volume, we're almost certainly gonna be creating a large conflict, so is,
The judge over there has a chance to appoint a special judge, like a day or two kind of thing, and he's got some people he trusts. So if that came up, we could get somebody to come in for that case, that specific case, or that day. But they wouldn't be able to handle it if they sat on the bench and presided over that case previously. There's an inherent conflict there.
And I'm sure there's names already floating out there. I haven't heard any, but with it being just a 8 or 9 month, temporary fulfillment, most of the people that practice in there, I mean, not most, but some, I mean, they have pretty vibrant law practices. So, the amount of time to appoint them and get them on the bench, and it being a full-time, I remember working there. There was times where literally I was there till midnight or 1 o'clock, sleeping on watching kids sleep on a bench, waiting on DCS to pick them up. I just wonder.
I think the applicant pool may be slim. That's just my personal opinion. I don't have anything to base that off of for the exact same reasons as you spoke. But we'll see. Back to that selection committee. I heard the give and take on the selection committee, and it seemed like everybody thought that, well, you could do that at nominate. Just have nominating committee do the same thing. Then it came down, well, that doesn't matter. County commission can take nominees from the floor. It doesn't matter what you do at nominating committee. You could have somebody in this process go through the selection committee, be unanimous selection of the selection committee, but come out here and we're following TCA, the general vacancy statute. Somebody could nominate them from the floor.
It happened.
It happens. So it completely circumvent the selection committee and nominating. So the past several times that we've used this general vacancy statute, we've just relied on the county commission asking the questions. But I like you keeping Tracy informed, and I like the idea of Tracy maybe submitting some questions because she knows how it runs and what works and what won't work. And so I think we need to listen to her input on it.
I just want to stress the urgency of a decision too. I mean, we have to, in juvenile court, you have to have hearings in so many hours. When DCS removes children, we have to have a hearing in 3 business days. You just have to. When we detain kids, you have to have a hearing in 72 hours. So this is, when he takes off and leaves for deployment August 1st, I've got a judge in Granger County that I have coming down here to already hear cases. That Judge Hunt, yes, it's called a conflict judge. Judge Edmondson in Union County used to do it for us. But he'll come down and hear some cases, and we can probably get him to do it, but he's only a part-time judge in Granger County, and his schedule's already full because he also works at a law practice. So time really is of the essence with this kind of thing. We need to be up and moving and.
Needs to be made the July.
Yeah.
At the July meeting.
Yeah. Just so you guys are aware that we have those special parameters.
So what are you asking for us to do, Jay?
I just want you to be aware of it, that it's coming up. We're gonna have to make a decision next Monday on how we're gonna proceed, so be thinking about this issue. And any questions about it? Otherwise, I'll stand down, don't forget, go ahead.
Do we just need the 10 day, is it the 10 days
Mhm.
for advertising the vacancy?
And then, another thing I need to remind you, we've got a private act to ratify, with a 2/3 vote next Monday night. That's the, one on veteran services. We had a private act on point. It was antiquated. It actually restricted the salary of Leon. Leon does a fabulous job, and we've chose to go with the state statutory scheme that's much more flexible. It's been on the books for several years now, and just repeal that private act. So the private act was to repeal the former private act that's been on the books since, I wanna say, the 30s. But, anyway, that will require a 2/3 vote. That'll be on the agenda next Monday. Anything else? Thank y'all so much.
Any new business? Any old business come for this committee? Seeing none, we'll call it adjourned. Thank you.